Hi. I wanted to talk to you about a question I saw in a discussion group this morning and a little bit about the interaction I had there. So, the question was about being swamped at work and your manager just keeps giving you more and they won't take no for an answer. And there's multiple dimensions to this. One, when we talk about time management, the issue is never actually time. The issue is something else. And in this case, it is probably something in the range of priority setting, who's in control of the situation, the assignment of projects, the assignment of work in general, and who gets to make the rules, who gets to make all of the decisions. So, what it made me think of was Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Saying Yes. And she does an absolutely fabulous job in there of talking about how she spent an entire year saying yes to everything. And that helped her understand, with the help of her own coach, how every time you make a decision, you say yes, you say no, you say maybe, you're saying the opposite to something else. So if you say, yes, I'm going to help my friend do this thing, even though I had already planned something for my own business, or I'm going to say no to that fun thing because I am going to spend time on my business. For example, you're actually saying yes to one thing and you're saying no to probably a whole bunch of other things. So in the particular situation, with your boss. I very vividly remember as I was starting to experience a lot of problems at work after I had reported harassment. Going to my manager and saying, I've got these things. I'm trying to decide between priorities. I want to make sure I understand your priorities so I don't create a situation that conflicts with them. And this is on a team where we've been told in the past, you're going to drop balls. Just let me know which balls you're going to drop and try to plan it well. And yet, this manager told me that I couldn't say no, especially if something was being said by someone at a higher level, a higher title than I myself was at. And so we started talking about that. And first of all, since I said it to my therapist, she gasped and said, "What? Whoa, that's abusive," especially to a woman who hears that all the time. When we're told we can't say no, that has a lot of connotations with how we're raised, how so many things in our society are gendered, and also to do with the fact that so many women are sexually harassed and sexually assaulted throughout our lives. And a lot of that is where our no is being ignored. So there is that context. We cannot ignore that context. Now, there are other people who have traumatic experiences as well. It's just going to be very common in a gendered way for women and anybody who doesn't fit a certain standard of cisgender white male in a workplace. So when you've got this situation where you're being told you can't say no, first of all, that's phrased horribly. The intent it might be coming from a good place. I don't know. Um, I was able to salvage that situation by saying, okay, let's work on that. And we spent a month or two practicing, okay, this request has come in and list of reasons. It's not a good fit for the team. It doesn't fit with our vision, goals, and priorities as defined overall. It doesn't fit with my own personal development plan, growth plan. Maybe it's just I've got too much on my plate and the others are higher priority, whatever it might be. We practice saying yes to everything. And it actually was very beneficial in some ways. Now, again, the phrasing of it, potentially the intent behind it, definitely the feeling we get from it, not necessarily good, but there's a nugget of gold in there. And that is, again, going back to Shonda Rhimes, when you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So some of the things that we practiced and that I encourage other folks to practice is when you're feeling like there's too much in front of you and there's no way you can get it all done, you don't have to take on everything. Even if somebody who has authority over you says that, well, you have to do it all, you have to find a way to make it all work. That doesn't mean that you have to give 100% to every one of those projects or that you have to get them all done on the time frame you might be working under. So you can practice things such as Well, that's great. I understand why that's so important to you. So, yes, I get it. And here's what's going on for me. I can take that if we move this other thing to a later date, or we move this thing to another team or another project, or I can do, yes, I can do that. I can do this 20% of the project, and then let's see where we want to go from there. So break it down into a smaller size chunk. Choose the part that fits best with your own needs or the team's needs, and say yes to a piece of it. You can go back and frame it in a way we were saying, yes, I would love to work on that. Let's put it in our backlog and get it prioritized the next time that we're looking at priorities. The next time we're planning a sprint, or whatever methodology you're using, um, let's get it in there. And if we need to move something else, hey, we hopefully have a process in place for reprioritizing or moving things around. Yes, let's put it into that process. So there's all sorts of ways to look at what you're framing it as. So you can still be saying no, in terms of, no, you can't take any more of my time. Yes, I'm going to honor my boundaries. Yes, I'm going to honor my own need to not burn out. Yes, I'm going to honor my own need to make it to my kid's birthday party, or take my mom to her doctor's appointment, or whatever it may be. So you're saying yes to multiple things, and you're saying no to multiple things. So a lot of that requires being in a mindset where you're less reactive in the moment. So you're able to step back a little bit from this thing that is triggering. So if your boss has repeatedly given you more than you can possibly get done in a reasonable amount of time, if you're feeling burned out, overwhelmed, whatever it may be, you're probably in a situation where, when something new that feels like those other icky things in the past lands on your plate, that you're immediately reacting in a push it away mindset. So, one thing you can do in the moment is think about, okay, what do I need to do to distance myself? Let me, maybe talk about something for 10 or 20 seconds, and then let me respond. For me, that's a good trick. I need those few seconds of delay. You can say, hey, let me think about that. Let me figure out and get back to you tomorrow on how we might be able to take another look at this thing you're wanting me to add, and take all the time you need. So that's one thing you can do. And also, you can think about longer term practicing some of those things. Practice sitting in the discomfort of having a disagreement with somebody with power over you, sitting in the discomfort of, how do I say no because I want to please everybody, whatever it may be, and go really deep. And so practice these new ways of getting out of having to react in the moment, because that usually leaves you with very few, very narrow options, and quite often those are somebody else's options being presented to you. So you're looking down this path, and somebody with authority says you can either do A or B. You can either do this project, or you can get fired. You can either do this project, or you're not going to get a good review. You can either do this thing, or this other person you're competing with is going to get all the kudos and possibly a promotion, right? That's somebody else setting the signpost on your journey. So what you can do is, if you start practicing mindfulness, you start practicing being able to separate that noticing of the trigger. So you've got this dragon out there, this dragon that says, um, when this happens, the burnout is triggered. I can feel all of those things, however that's defined for you. For me, it's anxiety, it's stress, it's an upset stomach. And I can literally feel my options narrowing. And I feel this time pressure of, I've got to decide now, I've got to do this now, right? So that's my own personal set of signposts along the way. So I can notice when that's happening, and then I can go, oh, you know what? Let me get back to you tomorrow. I'm going to start with some questions, but let me get that down. I've got this other thing that I've got to get finished right now, and I'm going to come back to you on that. So that's something that worked for me on that particular team. That may not work for everyone. It may not work on every team or with every authority figure. So really being able to step back and listen differently to that dragon, that thing that is going on inside you, that is narrowing your options and making you feel like you have to, you should, you must do something to somebody else's set of standards or control or expectations. Be able to listen differently to that dragon and say, oh, thank you, dragon, for pointing out to me, instinct, whatever you want to call it. Thank you for that signal that something's not right here. Something's not working for me. Now I'm going to make a conscious, intentional decision of how I'm going to respond internally and externally. I'm going to do whatever I need to get my heart rate back down. I'm going to do whatever I need to have the amount of time that's comfortable for me to think it through. I'm going to choose to push back, not push back, whatever it is, you create that distance so you have time to do things in a way that feels authentic to you, that feels good to you, that lets you maintain the joy in your job and your career, instead of feeling like someone else is taking all those choices away from you. Quite often that's the source of burnout, is you feel like you've totally lost control of yourself. You've lost your autonomy, your agency, your self-determination, whatever term you want to put on it. And those dragons inside your head have just completely taken over, and they're fighting and all of these things. So when you hear someone say, you must do this or you can't do that, stop back and think about the framing and how you pivot from those are my only options to, oh, I have multiple options. And for any one of those options, I can reframe things so that the option that works, the option that I think is best for this situation, is framed to myself and to others as a yes. And that can take you really far in a corporate environment. So when people talk about the politics at work, a lot of times that's what they're talking about, is something as seemingly minor as whether you say yes or no, but the outcome's exactly the same, can really make a huge difference. People like to hear yes. They like to have somebody agree with them. The improv statement of saying yes and instead of yes but, same thing. You're saying yes. So I hope this has been really useful to you. I spent 25 years in the tech industry. There are places where this would have worked, places where it would have been harder, places where I would need to bring a whole bunch of other skills in. But the thing is that you've got this. You'll figure it out. Don't fall into the trap of thinking there's only one path forward, or that you have to follow somebody else's signpost on that path. I'm Cindy Gross with Befriending Dragons. I'm a leadership coach. I help women in tech navigate work culture with confidence. Thank you. I'll see you next time.